Hello, today I will be evaluating the informative speeches given by Amanda, Nolan, and Polina. I'll briefly discuss each speaker's topic, highlight three strengths, three areas for improvement, and identify all the sources they use throughout the presentations. First, I'd like to start with Amanda's informative speech on attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. I thought this was an excellent choice because it's something that affects many people directly or even indirectly, making it easier for the audience to relate to and stay engaged. One thing I thought Amanda did very well was the overall organization of her speech. It was structured clearly, and each point flowed naturally into the next. I also really like the title and the hook she used at the beginning because they immediately grabbed my attention and made me interested in learning more. I know a few other people appreciated that as well. Finally, I thought she explained the topic in a way that made it easy to understand, even for audience members who may not know much about ADHD. There are also a few areas where I think the presentation could be even stronger. First, I thought using a little bit more hand and body movement would make the delivery more engaging. Second, making a tad bit more eye contact with the audience instead of looking away from the camera would help build a stronger connection with the audience. Lastly, I think adjusting the camera position so that more of her upper body is visible would allow her body language to come across more effectively. Amanda supported her presentation with many credible sources, including the CDC and Prevention, the National Institute of Mental Health, the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, Children and Adults with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, also known as CHAD, and the Mayo Clinic. Overall, I thought Amanda gave a very organized and informative presentation on a very important topic. Next, I'd like to evaluate Nolan's informative speech on how exercise improves longevity and health span. I thought this was a very relevant topic because staying healthy is something that benefits everyone. And he did a great job explaining how regular exercise can improve not only how long we live, but also the quality of our lives. One of Nolan's biggest strengths was the overall organization of his speech. It was well structured, it was easy to follow from beginning to end. I also thought the statistics and the numbers he shared were very eye opening and really helped emphasize the importance of staying active. Finally, I appreciated that he supported his presentation with several highly credible sources, which made his information much more convincing. There were a few areas where I think Nolan could improve as well. First, there are a few moments where he used filler words like and reducing those would make the delivery sound a bit more smoother and just a tad bit more confident. Second, making a little more eye contact with the audience, the camera, would help strengthen the connection again. Lastly, adding a bit more hand and body movement throughout the presentation would make the delivery feel a bit more engaging. Nolan, again, as I stated before, cited several credible sources, including the Journal of Aging Research, Harvard Health Publishing, the American Medical Association, the Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Institute, the Mayo Clinic, and Johns Hopkins Medicine. Overall, I thought Nolan delivered a very well organized and informative presentation on a topic that is valuable and relevant to everyone. Finally, I'd like to discuss Polina Sandoval's informative speech on why many young adults and college students continue living with their parents because of the high cost of housing and today's cost of living. I thought this was a very, very timely and relatable topic because it's something many people our age are currently experiencing or will likely experience in the future. One of Polina's biggest strengths of her presentation was, again, her topic of choice. Housing affordability is a very real issue in today's economy, and she did an excellent job explaining why it's becoming increasingly difficult for young adults to live independently. I also thought the statistics and sources she used really demonstrated how serious the housing crisis has become and helped support the points she was making. Finally, I really liked how she ended her speech. Rather than simply summarizing her main points, she left the audience with what felt like a warning or a heads up for students who are planning to move out in the future, which made her conclusion much more memorable. There are also a few other areas where I think the presentation could be improved. First, there were a couple of pauses and moments where she stuttered, and with a little bit more practice, those would likely become much, much more smoother. Second, I think using transition sentences between her main points instead of saying on to main point one or on to main point two would help the speech flow much more naturally. Lastly, there were a few sentences that felt a tad bit repetitive, so rewording those ideas slightly would make the presentation even stronger and just much more polished. Paulina cited several credible sources throughout her presentation, including the National Library of Medicine, Pew Research Center, The Guardian, CNBC, California State University, Fullerton's College of Business and Economics, and realestatenews.com. Overall, I thought Paulina delivered a very thoughtful and informative presentation on an issue that is becoming extremely relevant for young adults today. And to wrap this all up, I want to congratulate Amanda, Nolan, and Paulina on their presentations. Each of them chose very interesting and very relevant topics. They did a great job supporting their information with credible sources, and they clearly put a lot of effort into preparing the speeches. I want to thank you all for sharing your presentations, and I enjoyed learning something new from each of you. Thank you.